Welcome to day 5 of Urbanization, Mr. Bidwell's AP Human Geography class. Today, the content objective, explain how transportation is an environmental concern to our future. Going more in depth, 1. Define the 5 epochs of Borchart's transportation model. Secondly, explain how transportation increases urban sprawl. 3. Describe how government policies encourage increased transportation. 4. Evaluate the impact of alternative energy vehicles or mass transportation and the impact on our future. 5. Explain how smart growth limits urban sprawl. And then lastly, explain the main characteristics of new urbanism in designing sustainable urban development. In other words, sustainable cities. All right, Borchard epoch. Geographer John Borchard, he identified five eras of urban development and changes according to transportation systems. The first you can see right here is the sail wagon epoch between 1790 and 1830. Urban areas cluster along the Atlantic coast, and communication was primarily by wind-powered ships along the coast. Epoch number 2 is the Iron Horse between 1830 and 1870. The steam engine made it possible for ships to travel much faster to inland locations. Canals connected newly found inland cities that had established the East Coast. Steam-powered railroads also provided transportation to outlying urban centers. And the third era of Borchard's model stresses the steel. So now steel between 1870 and 1920 creates long-haul rail lines connecting urban areas around the country. And then 4 is the auto air amenity epoch between 1920 and 1970. So the internal combustion engine made it possible for motor vehicles to become the dominant model of transportation within and between urban areas. Gasoline-powered airplanes facilitated long-distance travel. And stage that was 4. Now let's go to stage 5. Sorry. Stage 5, satellite electronic jet propulsion between 1870 and today. This is when we begin to see this era is characterized by the ability to communicate electronically as well as to control transportation systems electronically, and now with smart boards and smart grids. And that would conclude the 5 eras of Borchard's model. All right, so urban transportation, cars and trucks really create the expansion of the central city and further distance of suburban growth. How does this happen? Well, for one, let's take a look at the impact on our landscape. So we have, as I already mentioned, some of the largest urban areas in the world, very spread out urban areas. The average city is about a quarter of its land is to roads and parking lots. And then we have multiple lane freeways that consume even more space within cities. And then valuable land in the central city is concrete. So it's made for parking, multiple level parking lots, and cars and trucks and transportation systems that all go into the central city. All right. The United States has more licensed vehicles than drivers. The U.S. government pays 90% of interstate highways. European and Japanese cities, they have disrupted. They have not really ruined a lot of their cities, as we had mentioned, because the importance of the central areas. Europe has subsidized mass transportation heavily compared to the United States, so that's why you see mass transportation a key part of society, a key part of the infrastructure and society of European culture, and not so much the vehicle being of importance, and then the opposite in the U.S. The car of the future. The greatest challenge to reducing pollution is the motor vehicles in urban areas. Alternative fuel, there are options. There's diesel. You can combine diesel fuel, which burns more efficiently. Then you have biodiesel, and that's again used by vegetable oils or recyclable grease from restaurants. And you have hybrid that uses a combination of petroleum and battery. You have ethanol, that's the distilling of major crops. The one that's most heavily subsidized in the U.S. is corn. Um, and then the question with ethanol is the amount of energy you take out of that corn, is it equal to the amount of energy derived for that fuel? And then you have plug-in hybrids now. This is where you have electric cars that you can plug into energy sources other than petroleum. Most likely, if it's in a house, it's going to be natural gas, but it can be other energy sources as well. And then it has some petroleum, much like the hybrid car, where a battery will maintain a charge and reduce the amount of petroleum needed to propel the vehicle. And then you have hydrogen fuel, and hydrogen is combined oxygen and air in producing an electric charge. All right, there's a look at a plug-in hybrid. Take a moment to think. All right, public transportation. Pros and cons, the benefits. In large areas, if there's a heavy or if there's a large arithmetic density, they're well suited for travelers. They're most efficient. Um, the most effective cost is with mass transit versus operating a vehicle. Operating a vehicle is very expensive with gas and insurance and the premiums in buying new cars. Then the benefits of public transportation also, it emits less pollutants, and then it's more efficient with energy. Limitations. Limitation of the U.S. is we often overlook the benefit of public transit. Um, there's higher value in other places. We are a culture that's built on the car, and our urban areas have been designed after the car, and we have such spread out cities. It's really difficult for the um, mass transportation to be effective in small or even medium-sized cities because of how sprawled cities are. There's not a high arithmetic density, so therefore it's not offered in many U.S. cities. There's also consideration of the autonomous vehicle, um, which could be the near future, where it has sensors and GPS, and the number of vehicles that are on the road in some major cities right now are expected to increase in the next half decade to decade. There's the mass transit known as the T in Boston. We can see mass transit found throughout the United States. There's energy. All right, and if you want to look at a video, slide 127. And then again, metro lines. All right, let's talk about sustainable city or smart growth. We see example of Portland. Portland takes new urbanism ideas and limits the sprawl by putting urban growth boundaries. You can see with the solid purple line. When we talk about um, Portland, there's other cities besides Portland that have taken these measures, but Portland is one of the first to put a limit on urban sprawl. Um, Other cities throughout the United States are starting to follow some of the strategies found in new urbanism that's found in Oregon, such as Tennessee, where they've defined growth boundaries. Maryland has also started smart growth laws discouraging the state from funding new highways. All right, this leads to new urbanism. So urbanism, sustainable development. Now we're seeing more alternative energies such as photovoltaic, solar, green roofs, or solar panels. We see higher density areas, mixed socioeconomic developments. We see sidewalks, which form walkability, and bicycle lanes that usually connect to basic services. Um, such as grocery stores or schools, etc. Um, we also see the transformation of waterfronts in what were known as brownfields. Brownsfield formed as a result of the deindustrialization. Remember talking about industry when steel began to leave um, in jobs in what is now the Rust Belt. Many of those areas were left vacant where there were concrete, dilapidated, and vacant buildings. And now we see those brownfields converted into parks and houses and recreational area and retail. And we see them in several vibrant neighborhoods like Greenwich Millennium Village, or we can see it here in um, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and that would be with like the area and oh gosh, now it's escaping me in Northeast. Gosh, I'm forgetting that area now. But we can see it in several areas um, throughout the United States where gentrification's happening. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Canadian cities, no, they're Canadian cities. Keep in mind they're smaller. Um, they're more densely populated near the central city. They have less highways, less cars, less uh, vehicles that driving cars, and they don't have ethnic enclaves like the United States and central cities and urban areas. They're more heterogeneous populations, so mixed ethnic and religious and socioeconomic classes. All right, we can see new urbanism with these strategies of expanding um, changes of infrastructure within parks and bikes, there's walkability, childcare fitness, seats in childcare centers, trees, and then electric vehicles and, and charging stations. Um, Continue with new urbanism, and we see that the government looks to partner with businesses to create infrastructure that enhances the environment for positive economic transactions. We can see it with 5G networks, high-speed internet, fiber optics for internet, uh, and then also flexible workspace. All right, there are the three pillars of sustainable urban development. And then again, here are the three pillars where sustainable development really hinges on um, the economy and the environment and better living for society. All right, if you have time, this is slide 136. Oh, they took it off. That'll take us to the end. Again, go to the conclusion write-up.